That was just my practice. That's my warm up. Now it's asking me if I got it again.
Okay. You should be live.
All right, we are live. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual meeting of the City of Oregon City's Urban Renewal Commission for Wednesday, June 16th. We are calling the meeting to order, and would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Sean Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith appears to be absent for now. Commissioner Doug Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Chair Denise McGriff.
I am here with bells on. So our first item of business is, do we have any citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda?
Yes, I believe we have one for Jerry Herman. I've just admitted him to the meeting.
Okay, I think he's here to talk about item number 2, which is
Okay.
on the agenda.
Got it.
So let's confirm that, and if he is, then let's wait till item number 2. Says he's connecting.
Hey, Jerry, can you hear us?
Jerry, are you there?
I see that he's muted.
Yeah.
So I've clicked ask to unmute. I'll give him a second.
Okay. Jerry.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Are you here to talk about item number 2 on the agenda?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you're not under citizen comments, so we'll get back to you, okay? This is for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have anybody that's on deck that wants to speak to something that is not on the agenda?
No one other than Jerry has been registered.
Okay, all right, so we will move on to, seeing that we have no citizen comments, let's move on to discussion items, and we have item number 1, which is the second amendment to the purchase and sale agreement for the property located at 922 Main Street. And I will turn this over to Mr. Conkle and Mr. Graham.
Thank you. Evening, Commissioner. So tonight before you, we have a proposed second amendment to the purchase and sale agreement for 922 Main Street. Requires an additional $10,000 of earnest money deposit, bringing the total to $15,000. This was reviewed back in September of 2020, and the Urban Renewal Commission voted to extend the existing purchase and sale agreement to make an expiration date of July 30th, 2021. And they did not at that point amend the agreement, which called for retail on the first floor and 3 stories of residential above that. The Willamette Stone is proposing a top story with 2 residential units would be the most significant change from the original agreement. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to James if there's anything in addition that he would like to add.
Sure. Back in 2018, when this project started, there was a retail component, there was a parking component, and then there were about 30 small residential components. Now, of course, it was a bigger building. Back then, you were talking about a 4-story. This situation is different. Now, on September the 16th, 2020, there's no residential because the developers were concerned about not having a quiet zone. So there was no residential, and office and retail only was considered at that time on November the 16th, 2020. Now we're looking at a situation where they're proposing a building with residential on the 3rd, 2 residential units, and the rest will be retail and commercial. Staff is also recommending that if this second amendment is approved, that we require the developers to provide an extra $10,000 in earnest money, bringing the total of earnest money to $15,000. And I think that's all I have. And I'll turn it back over to the chair.
So, do we have any questions for staff? All right, well, I see that Mr. Mattson is here, and would you like to unmute yourself? And, well, we know who you are, but just go ahead and say it for the record.
Chair McGriff, I think we have
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Oh, you have a question? Okay, sorry, his hand just popped up. Yes.
And just for the record, Mayor Lyle Smith has joined the meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I may wait because I don't know if my question is for staff or developers. So maybe I'll listen to the comments and then I'll.
Okay. Okay. Derek, are you ready?
I am. Thank you very much. So my name is Derek Metzen with Greenbox Architecture, located at 502 7th Street in Oregon City. Working with Willamette Stone, Carrie and Michael are both on the call with us today. And we are proposing an amendment to the project. The building will be situated much like previous iterations that you've seen. The largest change that you will notice is that we have shifted the program from purely residential with commercial on the ground floor to primarily commercial with residential on the third floor. As we've discussed before, that quiet zone is a factor, and it's one that we've looked at a number of ways to try and mitigate. And when we're situated 50 feet from those railroad tracks, for 30 units, that's a pretty big concern. Office is a much more congenial use to being adjacent to a railroad track. There's a number of office buildings along Main Street that have fit that profile, but we do understand that the city is interested in seeing residential there. It is certainly a component that we would like to see happen there. And so we've proposed 2 units up on that third floor. And the way we've organized the building is 2 floor plans that are about 4,900 square feet apiece. So we've got just under 10,000 square feet of office there. We have a main entrance for the ground floor off of Main Street. We've got a secondary lobby off of 10th Street that allows access to both the ground floor and that second floor. That's a typical commercial lobby with an elevator, nice stair that allows access to both floors, mailroom, that sort of thing. And then also allows access to a third floor with 2 units. Those units are 2-bedroom with views out towards the river. We've organized outdoor decks that could overlook Main Street and towards the river. And we feel it's a very attractive project. We're able to meet parking requirements on site. We will ask for some standard deductions that are allowed in the zone and along Main Street, but for the most part, as far as we've evaluated this, it hits all of those high points that most citizens are concerned about. Are we able to manage traffic flow in and out? Yes, we're going to hit that right in and right out, as we've already discussed with engineering in previous iterations. Are we able to manage parking on site? Yes, we are. Can we present a viable project? Yes, we can. The large asks here are that switch from primarily residential to primarily commercial, and an extension of this agreement so that we have time to go through that land use process. That land use process does take 18 months to 24 months in Oregon City. And so the way the agreement is currently written, we need to acquire building permits prior to closing on that land. And so that gives us a viable amount of time to work through land use, building permitting, acquiring those permits, and then closing on that property. So I'll turn it over to Carrie and Mike at this time to explain a little bit more on their side what we're looking at. But the overall idea is a building of size and scale that fits with Oregon City. That third floor will pull back a touch from that Main Street elevation, so it's not imposing or appearing taller than what else is on that Main Street frontage. And so we can get a nice clean top to the building that's in consistent scale with commercial buildings, but still having some residential units up there to balance out the program.
Thank you. Rocky, did you want to ask your question now, or do you want to wait till Carrie and Michael get done?
I guess I'll wait. It's going to be a long conversation.
Okay, well, it's
Okay.
up to you.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Make sure you have the opportunity.
I'll wait.
Okay. Well, whoever wants to go first, please do.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Kerry Hughes with Willamette Stone. Thank you for having us tonight to continue the dialogue. First of all, we're very excited about, hopefully getting in a position to get started on this project quickly. I think Derek hit a lot of the high notes from our original scheme that we presented. That was predominantly a residential with a small retail component. After kind of studying the site, understanding the railroad impacts, noise is just a big issue. It's, I think we've mentioned in past meetings, if HUD considers noise an environmental concern, they do noise studies on sites. Anybody that is in Oregon City, when that train comes by, it's quite loud. So, hopefully Quiet Crossing is in the works for the future. But, with the proximity of this site, the constraints of access, being up against the railroad, with the intersection on Main there being a fairly well trafficked, we just felt that the most recent project with the commercial and the retail that we presented last summer was good, but we did really want to figure out, hey, is there a way to get some level of residential into the project, which, Derek was clever enough to find a way to put 2 units on the top, which will present, we think, a very nice 3-story kind of a gym box deal for the city that will really fit the scale and be a nice project, again, for the city. And again, welcome any questions that anyone has for us regarding the project or our plans, the timelines, why we need the time. As Derek mentioned, the original purchase agreement contemplated us going through the full land use process as well as getting permits. So that's, just knowing from where we're starting today. Again, now that we've got some finality with where the Quiet Crossing is, I know the city's done their urban renewal study recently. It's just the time that's required to work through the city process and get through the permitting process. Hopefully we can move quicker. But at this point, I think, important too is, from the point we do go, it's, as Derek touched on, it's, a good 18 to 24 months before a project would actually, you put shovels in the ground. So, again, we're anxious to get going on the design side and, working with Derek to getting, building to a point where we can submit for permits and, produce a quality project for the Main Street area. Mike, if you had anything to add.
No, nothing to add. I think you guys covered it. But we are very excited for the project. We've been anxious to get going, and we hope to continue the conversation here and get some finality on what the council's thinking. So,
Mr. Smith, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right, so I'm going to try to do this in a. I'm really frustrated, and I'm frustrated in a lot of different ways. And so I'm going to try to go through all of those. Some of it is frustration at the change, and some of it's frustration of this urban renewal body, and some of it's frustration on the commission's end. And so I want you to, at least listen to what I have to say, especially if you are new to this body in the last 5 years. I have been part of the Urban Renewal Commission and City Commission for a decade plus. I know why we have these properties. I know what the reason is we purchased these properties. I know what the big picture view of what it is that we were supposed to do with them. I know that that did not include office space, ever. There's never been part of, now that's not to say that this Urban Renewal Commission can't change that view, but none of these properties that Urban Renewal owns has been key to us wanting to bring office space into downtown or into the urban renewal district. That just has ever come up. Here's the 2 things that we've always wanted to acquire in downtown: retail, and residential. Now, how do we do that? Well, how we do that is we hold on to these properties until we have the ability to do that. And the other thing is, for the last decade, we've been working on a quiet zone. Urban Renewal has been working on it and got to the point that that was one of our main goals. And yet in this past year, the city commission threw that out the window and didn't think that that was a priority. And I've heard our recent mayor, in the last meeting about Salem, this being brought up as the quiet zone about a good idea again. But we washed that out of our goals. And what I've said, we've lost track of that. And now here we are with a development that we've been waiting for, potential for a site. And now it's not going to be what we want because we didn't keep on the ball of what the plan has been for the last decade. I'm disgusted by that. And I'm disgusted by that because if there's people on this Urban Renewal Commission that are new, they should know the history of why we're here and what the vision has been. Now, we can change that vision, which is what we've been talking about. But guess what? We haven't had that conversation yet, which is why the last time this development came with a change, we said we're not going to make a decision until we go through the visioning process. And here we are again with another change to sign off on something where we still haven't gone through that visioning process. Okay, it's important that we understand that each property that Urban Renewal owns should not be looked at piecemeal, one lot by one lot by one lot. We have those properties so that we can revitalize them. The one at 10th Street, the one at 12th Street, that is actually the basis of connecting Main Street to our new development, which will be called the North End at some point, whatever that looks like, because we own property out there as well. Those pieces are crucial in understanding how they all work together. And if we piecemeal it one by one and say, oh, well, this looks good, let's sell that. This looks good, let's sell that. We are not thinking of the whole. And I warn you, this is a huge mistake. And I think unfortunately, this commission has done it to itself. It's clear that this is not what we intended originally for this piece of property. Okay, so if we're going to change our vision, then let's go through that visioning process and discuss it, and then we can come back to this and decide, okay, does office really what we want now? And I think we need to be very careful because we're mixing words. And I've been on this commission long enough to know that when someone says they're going to build apartments, it doesn't mean they're going to build apartments, maybe. If they say they're going to build condos, it may be an apartment. If they say they're going to build commercial, it may be office. If they say they're going to build commercial, it could be retail. You notice how James, our economic development director, used the word retail/commercial. And when the developer that commented tonight only said commercial, and when you look at the documents, it only says office, that's because they don't have any plan to be retail. Okay? And so let's stop mixing words, James, when we say retail. That's not what this plan is asking for. They're asking for 2 floors of office space with 2 apartments above, which, by the way, I want to know even if that's the truth, because do we know 100% sure after we sell this that those will turn into apartments later? We don't know that. And I would have to know that 100% in writing that they would have to only be used that way, because we've seen this bait and switch before. So do I think that having 2 floors of office and 2 apartments is going to make up for this idea that the original plan was retail and residential? No, not even close, not even close. Okay, so I'm going to say this. If you think that this is an acceptable use of this property, I would at least encourage you to wait through we go through the visioning process to make that decision. Okay, at least do that, because this one piece is a small piece of the entire big picture. If we start picking and choosing random projects and selling out, we don't look at the big picture, we're in trouble. And we really need to focus on this conversation of the quiet zone. if we really want retail downtown, and we are a tourism development community, and we are looking for the Willamette Falls project to come online, and we're looking for something to happen at the Cove, and we build just, office space and apartments or whatever we build, is that going to do what we need to do to get where we want in this city? I think no. Now, how do we know if that's the agreement of this body? Well, we go through the visioning process and we discuss, one, if we're even going to continue urban renewal, which we still haven't had that conversation yet. Those conversations have to happen before we sell these lots, period. So, let's hold off and let's have that conversation, which is why we already put it off already. I mean, I think you're gonna be hypocrites as a body if you decide to go forward with this plan when the last time they came, we said, hey, wait, we're gonna go through the visioning process first. So I'm disappointed at all levels because I think, we were online to have the things in place as a commission and of urban renewal and city commission in the next year or so to have a quiet zone, if that would have stayed as our goals, to put some of these projects in line. And now I think we've thrown that all out the window, and I think we've shot ourselves in the foot. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Conkle, could you just briefly let everybody know again where we are on pursuing the quiet zone? I don't believe that it was thrown out the window. I don't believe that this commission said we're not going to pursue it.
It wasn't a goal.
A lot of money, we were going to try to find other avenues to support it. So you could just briefly kind of sum that up.
Right. So it was in the current biennial city commission goals. It was not included in the upcoming biennial commission goals. We did apply for federal funding, and we did make the first round of cuts for potential federal funding for all or a portion of a quiet zone funding request, but we're still waiting upon how that legislation plays out at the federal level.
Derek?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Rocky, I certainly appreciate your impassioned speech there. We want the quiet zone as much as you. When we first sat down and talked to Eric about this, we felt like we made it pretty clear this hinged on that quiet zone moving forward. I'd spoken with the years prior to making this proposal that, man, when are we going to make that move towards the quiet zone happening? And the sentiment from staff was, we don't feel that's a priority until we have a project on board. So we brought a project to the table, and it's unfortunate, and I have followed the history of this site. When it was acquired, you're right, it was intended for residential, multifamily. And back in 2012, I believe it was, the Urban Renewal Commission commissioned a study to review the highest and best use for both this site and 12th and Main. And the conclusions of that came back with 12th and Main made sense for residential of 3 to 5 floors, but it wasn't necessarily financially viable, but residential made sense there. This site would be a loss at 2012's construction costs and SDC fees and the rest. And their take on it was not to do residential at this site, but preferably 2 floors of commercial. And I see Rocky shaking his head. It's in writing in that report. So I would encourage everyone to go back and take a look at that, because that was the conclusion they came down to, because they didn't think residential here would be viable. We took a look at it, hoping that the city would go forward with that quiet zone. It's not on the cards right now, and we respect that. Retail isn't viable on this site because of the amount of parking that's required. So we need 4.1 spaces per 1,000 square feet of retail that we have on site. It might be 4.7. I think the office is 3.7. Anyways, it's a lot of parking required. So either we get a much smaller building, which seems to be not the goal here or the highest and best use, or we provide a program in which we can meet the parking requirements. There's no way we could fill up that whole ground floor and meet the parking requirements for the site. So the limitation here is in part that existing buildings don't have parking requirements downtown for a large extent, but existing buildings, as we develop these, do. And so that's not an item that we can really change. The building takes up half the site. We can't move the parking lot any farther south. We've got 7 feet roughly of elevation change between one side and the other. And so the parking that we're showing, I believe, is 15 spaces, and that truly is a limitation of what can be achieved here. So yeah, I think we agree on a lot of items. We were surprised to come back to that 2012 report that Urban Renewal Commission commissioned and find out, wow, that is really the highest and best use. Here we are 8 years later.
So Commissioner Smith, before I call on you again, I wanted to see if anybody else wanted to weigh in. I have Commissioner Neely.
First of all, I empathize with what Commissioner Smith says. I was around in 2012 on the Urban Renewal Commission. I'm fairly new, but I go back a ways. I guess my concern is really less the commercial issue than it is the office space. Let me say why. We've got a lot of office space down there, and the courthouse probably in the not distant future is going to move. And we're going to have a lot of office space that's going to be, it's not going to be occupied. And what happens to that? I really feel fairly strongly on the residential piece, not so much on the commercial.
Commissioner O'Donnell or Commissioner Cross? Comments?
Well,
None? Commissioner Morrow? Oh, Commissioner O'Donnell, you have your hand up now. Yep.
yeah, it took me a bit. I actually think Mr. Metz and his associates have done a commendable job of trying to make a project fit. But I also agree with what Commissioner Smith said, that the failure is not on to make this a viable project, it's not on the part of the applicants. It's on we as a city, it's on our urban renewal, it's on our government, it's on our staffing. It's situations we have to work through. I mean, I feel I don't want office space either. I'd like to see, I want a viable downtown, which means retail. And I'm fine with, I actually feel that we should still wait until we wade through these obstructions we failed to overcome. I think the property would be even more valuable to Mr. Matson and his associates if he could develop it into a residential with retail downstairs. And I agree with, I'm not in favor of more office space. So unfortunately, that's where I stand. I think they've done a commendable job trying to make a fit. And I don't feel that the shortcoming is theirs. I feel it rests with us as a governing body and not with them. So I probably would not be in favor of this specific project and like to see us clear those hurdles to make this even a more valuable piece of property. That's it.
Commissioner Mayor Lyle Smith, do you have anything you'd like to add before I come back around to Mr. Smith?
Sure, I think Sean was ready. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, no, I kind of agree with Commissioner Rocky Smith and Commissioner O'Donnell. I think we really need to get through the vision and redo the list and that kind of stuff before we start doing projects. Nothing says we can't go out for an RFP later and the developer can, apply, be one of the people that puts in a proposal. But I think it is a little bit early at this point, given what the other stuff that we have going, are we going to go to a vote? Are we going to have urban renewal still? Do we want to go through the project list again? And so I kind of agree with Commissioner Smith.
Mayor Lyle Smith?
All right, so we have a few things. So regarding the Quiet Zone Rail project, part of the reason I didn't pursue it as a project for the city commission was because I actually think it's a great urban renewal project at this point in time. And I had shifted my thinking in the last year or so of moving it from, because I don't think the city is just going to come up with $2 million to lay down for it. And to me, I think there is an urban renewal benefit. I've looked into the urban renewal, whether or not it fits. Originally, I also didn't think it was a good project for urban renewal. I've done more research on urban renewal, and I've changed my mind on that I think it can be a good infrastructure project that benefits all of downtown and the economic development and where we're trying to go. And therefore I can align those two. So yeah, my opinion on that project has changed, and I've been pushing that project pretty hard at the Clackamas County coordinating and with other representatives and providing my support for funding for that project. But that's where I'm at on that one and why I didn't push it. If we want an urban renewal project, there's one right there that's just waiting to happen. And so if you want to move on a project, and I don't know, I think that one we could probably get some pretty good support around it. And the other thing is, there is a time limit on those drawings and all the design work that was done that our city, we've invested like $400,000 into design work of getting that rail, all of that stuff put together, and all of that's going to expire. You're talking about wasting money. If we don't get moving on that project, we either need to find out about the federal funding. If we don't get the federal funding, we need to move on it. Otherwise, we're just wasting a couple $100,000 more, something that will have to all get redone if we don't move on the rail project. So I am pushing it pretty hard. I completely support it. I think we should move forward with it. So that's that one. The whole vision stuff, I guess I have a question, just a general question, and this is maybe an urban renewal question for maybe Andy Parks or Sam. If we decide, hypothetically, if we do the vote and the vote comes back, the city doesn't support urban renewal, we decide to close the district. What's our options for the properties that we own, like this property? It would then go into this process of shutting down the district. I assume we would sell these properties, right? We'd either sell them or give them to the city. What's our...
The process, hi, everybody, Sam here. The process would be that they'd be transferred to the city. That would be kind of the default.
Okay. All right. I guess regarding the development, I mean, truthfully, I just feel sorry for the developer, dealing with all of this moving around and us not being able to get our act together. I'll agree with you, Rocky. I believe we've been all over the place. We've put them off for years. I actually can agree with, or I can see the challenges of developing on that piece of property. So I think we need to be, I think we can want a lot of stuff, but at the same time, I think we need to understand that there are challenges with that particular piece of property. It is on a corner, a very busy, active corner as well. And so I personally don't know that a big apartment building or residential would be a good spot right there. I actually like what they're proposing. I do agree with the office space. I don't know that we need office space, and with the conversation about the courthouse and there's going to be more office space, I think there is plenty of office space. So with all that said, I guess I have another question of like, if we were to move forward hypothetically, this still needs to go through the land use process. And so is there a way, because Commissioner Smith brought up a good point, like we approve this and it's 2 apartments, 2 nice 1,300 square foot apartments, right? They look nice. There's no guarantee, right? Because this has to go through the land use process. So is it the land use process that is opening up that opportunity for this proposal to change? And is there no way for us to ensure as the seller that we get what we want?
I would propose that, if there was a mix of uses that the Urban Renewal Commission identifies as required in order to come to an agreement for the sale of that would be written into the agreement and required. And if they wanted to change that, they would need to come back to the Urban Renewal Agency. So the land use is a review of an application as proposed versus the criteria. It's not a negotiation of what the development should be.
Right.
So there's two separate processes going on right here.
Right.
So
So
you could write into the purchase and sale agreement any requirements that the Urban Renewal Commission determined were necessary to come to an agreement.
So if we wanted to do that, now would be the time to write that into the amendment, right? And see if the developer agreed to that new language that would be added to the contract. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe we would have a discussion about that, see if there's consensus. We would take it back, write it up, negotiate that, bring back a purchase and sale agreement that either reflects what the commission requested or 75% of it, and here's where there's disagreement, and then we would have those discussions. But yeah,
Okay.
if there are changes that we do, we would need to write that in there. Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to, because I agree with Commissioner Smith. You know, I like with the Cove, I believe there was a bait and switch kind of thing, right? Or at least they feel that way. It was before my time here, and you know, they were promised one thing and got something else. And so I just want to try to I understand that. So how do we mitigate that? And how do we, you know, is there a way to keep things moving forward by coming up with a solution?
We need to be very specific about what it is we want, and I agree that needs to be written into any agreement we would do for any property we own, not just this one. I'm looking at my clock to my right, and I'm looking at the time on my computer, and Adam, you've not weighed in. I see Rocky has his hand up. Rocky, do you have something new to add to this? Because if we're just going to go back around in a circle, we've got 3 other things on the agenda that I would like to try to get to, if we can, to complete our work for tonight for this agency. So, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Chair McGriff. I do not have anything else to add. My biggest concern is basically with the courthouse, and we don't need any more office space there. So I'm having a really hard time there, but I also am upset with the position that the city has put the developers in. And so that's all I have to say.
Okay. Mr. Smith, do you have something new to add before I call on Mr. Matson and Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would have a question for the proposal. If, let's say, that Urban Renewals, you know, decides that as a whole, as a body, that this quiet zone is a priority, which the City Commission did not, or we get funding from some other source in the foreseeable future, how would that change your view of this development? Would it change anything?
Are you asking the applicants, or are you asking the other partners?
Because the point is if we now say, okay, now it's a priority for us, then that would be a very good reason to not support this plan, right? Or this project, because if we now think the quiet zone is important, then we would want to make sure that was in place before we decided what to do with this lot. So if that becomes a priority for us, and would that change, you know, the components of this development itself? Would there be more residential if we actually said that this is going to be a priority for us to address?
You want Mr. Hughes or Mr. Matson to answer that, or either one?
Either.
Okay, guys, you're up.
Terry, would you like to take this?
Sure. No, I think it certainly would change things. I think even with a quiet crossing, given the proximity to that rail line, there's still going to be vibration, there's noise, the train's going to slow down. So it's a real consideration. And I hope you guys hang with us here. I think we've all been really patient here. We're trying to, Mike in my career is residential real estate. I started out as a groundskeeper, picking up cigarette butts at apartment property, leasing apartments. I've done it all. I financed, I've sold apartments. It's all I know. So knowing what the residents require and what it's like to live in situations, it's always going to be an impediment with this specific site. You go across the street, you go somewhere else, the further away you can get from the tracks, the better. I think quiet zone is certainly a step in the right direction. Could we add units? Certainly. I think the big restriction here is going to be, the parking that Derek touched on is, how many units can we really get there? But I'd say, again, whether a city, again, hopefully you guys can stay with us. We really love the site. I spent a lot of time in downtown Oregon City, would love to be a part of Main Street and developing, again, and, we want to develop a nice quality project. And with the cards that we have right now, our goal is to find what the highest and best use of the site is as a developer, just to make sure it's a successful project. And again, that's why we've ended up where we are. So again, I'd hope if there is that path to go down a quiet crossing, we'd still have an option to be the developer on the site, given the time and energy and resources. And Derek, he does really nice drawings, but it's time and money that goes into that. So again, I would, as part of that study for the city, I would strongly encourage, if you do go that route, make sure you do a very thorough noise study. I've mentioned in the past, but for example, HUD, they've got a 75 decibel limit. We had a project turned down by HUD on North Lombard Street across from a New Seasons because they said it was too noisy on a 35-mile-per-hour 2-lane street. So that's how sensitive the government, who insures loans, is about noise. And again, I just say with this specific site, I know we want to see housing in downtown Oregon City. We agree. Is this the best site to do it at this scale we originally contemplated? We hope so. After spending more time seeing where things have ultimately landed, I think a smaller residential component here is the right fit. I understand the concerns around office. It is a relatively small amount of office. And then just to touch on retail, which was mentioned earlier, I think this is a great retail corner location, and the intent would be to have this retail. So as far as just to clear where we stand with, but again, I think if the city does go with a quiet crossing, again, I'd hope that we'd have the opportunity to be the developer on the site, because we know that's going to take some time. But also as part of that, make sure the city really does take a keen study on noise for this site, this specific site, and its proximity to the rail line. So that's just what I want to touch on. And again, thanks for the time here.
Okay, so in the interest of time, it seems like we've come down to a couple of options. Again, I don't recall that this Urban Renewal Commission ever stopped supporting the quiet zone. Now, maybe the City Commission did, and again, we're two different bodies. So we could have a motion to affirm that we want to continue to work on the quiet zone as an Urban Renewal Commission. You have what I see as a couple of options. Help me out here, Mr. Conkle, on whether we want to extend this purchase and sale agreement as is, and then come back to it when we finish the vision, which I hope will be within the next 2 months, and then revisit it again, or we let it expire, or I don't really see any support for the office component. At least I'm doing a little tally here on my notes. So did I get that kind of all together?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so commissioners, what is your pleasure? Do we want to have a motion supporting pursuing the quiet zone as an Urban Renewal Commission? And if so, would somebody be willing to make that motion?
Sure. I'm happy to make that motion. I guess my motion would be depending on, we need to await federal funds to find out if we're going to get federal funds. So depending on the outcome of whether or not it's federally funded or not, I would make the motion that the Urban Renewal Committee actively pursues the Quiet Zone Rail project to move that forward as soon as possible.
And I'm going to second it because I support that as well. So is there any discussion, or can I call for the motion?
Chair, I realize this is Commissioner Smith lost internet. I'm not sure if
okay, so we hang on a minute.
I'm going to try and give him the number to call into.
Okay, we'll hang on for just a second. So say on Barbara Richmond's show, talk amongst yourselves. If you know the reference, you'll laugh. If you don't, you'll think, what the heck is she talking about? I think what I'm talking about.
Chair, while we're waiting for Commissioner Smith, may I add to the conversation?
Yes, sir.
I would give these gentlemen every future consideration. They've been thoughtful. They're trying to work with us. I think something came up that was brought up by Mr. Hughes. Maybe that we should take some decibel readings and what is the noise level of a train in the absence of the crossing sounds? I mean, do we exceed the 75 decibels? Because if we're going to do that, even with a quiet zone, then we've got to reconsider. According to Mr. Hughes, we wouldn't be able to build HUD housing there anyhow. So I think we got some homework to do.
Well, is HUD the only option for financing, I guess would be my question. I know that, well, for those of you that know where I live, I can hear the train quite clearly from where I live and I'm not right next to it. And again, I don't mind it because I like trains. So.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't want to dismiss an option.
No.
If there will be no future option regardless of a quiet
Right.
zone.
Yeah, hopefully we have the ability to do that. I know that there was a previous land use action many years ago that we were able to get a hold of a noise meter. And based on some sounds that came out of, well, it was US West at the time, so you can tell how far back that was. They exceeded the noise levels for a residential, a commercial use that was in the middle of the McLaughlin neighborhood. So I have a little bit of experience doing that. We also dealt with it quite a bit in the Central East Side because we have the main line crossing through there. Did you get him, Tony?
Yeah, he was logging back in.
Okay, I see him. He's coming in on the phone.
And I think Mr. Metzen may have a response.
His hand is still up from before, but we have a motion on the floor. Rocky, are you with us? Rocky, can you hear us?
Telephone is muted at the moment.
Rocky, unmute.
And I've asked to unmute, so it should be *6 if you can hear us.
Yay! Can you hear us now, Rocky? Rocky? Says he's unmuted. Rocky, can you hear us? Oh, now we lost Sean.
Sean's coming back in though.
Rocky, can you hear us? Rocky, can you hear us? I can hear myself in Rocky's phone. Rocky, we have a second on the floor. He's okay. He kind of. Are you back?
Yes, I am back.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor to support pursuant of a quiet zone dependent upon federal funds. And then Mr. O'Donnell made a suggestion that we also look into decibel readings at the crossing. Depends on whether it's the freight or the Amtrak. The Amtrak is quieter. I can hear which one it is when they come through because I can tell after living here for so long. So I'm going to call for the question.
It looks like we lost Doug Neely, but he's coming back in right now. But I'll go ahead and start the vote. Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Sean Cross.
Yes.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Neely. If he's in yet, we'll wait just a second. Commissioner Adam Marl, excuse me.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Chair Denise McGriff.
Aye.
And Commissioner Doug Neely.
Here, yeah. Well, I don't know what the vote was, so I got.
So,
So
The motion on the quiet zone.
and to move forward on it?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, all right. So, folks, what is your pleasure on the purchase and sale agreement? It is now 6:53.
I would make a motion that we extend the agreement as a time extension with no changes for 3 months. This item come back when we can have an answer on the vision.
Is there a second?
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Smith. Let's call roll.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
and Chair Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Aye, so I don't think we are going to get to items 2, 3, and 4 in the time that we have left. Mr. Conkle, what would be your suggestion?
I guess I would leave that up to the commission. They've had the materials for items 2 and 3. Is it something we feel we can move through relatively quickly, or?
I don't think so.
I don't either. I think we should tackle number 4 because it does have a time sensitivity to it.
Yes, it does. So do we have a motion to continue items 2 and 3?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, on the motion to continue, we'll have to get our staff to help us with a second date. So I apologize, staff. You've been waiting in the wings, and I apologize to Mr. Herman. Also, so we'll work on that. So on the vote, please, Mr. Jacob.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Did I?
sorry, I missed it.
I didn't hear
Commissioner
it.
Doug Neely,
Oh,
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
and Chair Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Again, our apologies. So we've got 10 minutes for, less than 10 minutes for item number 4. Let's really quickly dispense with the minutes of the May 19th meeting. Do I have a motion and a second?
so moved.
Seconded by O'Donnell.
Okay. On the motion to approve the minutes of May 19th, 2021 as written, just signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're done with that. All right, see item number 4. So,
Chair Denise McGriff,
yes,
we'll have to also ask for any nays or abstentions for that.
everybody said yes, so I didn't see any other hands that were available for nays or abstentions. Anybody abstaining? Because I thought I saw everybody raise their hand.
Looks good, thanks.
Okay. All right. So as per the request, the Executive Committee of the Urban Renewal Commission met last Friday. And you have in your packet our recommendation for how to proceed. And I hope everybody's had an opportunity to read that because, again, it's because the time is a little short. So do we have any questions of those of us who were at the meeting, or do you have any questions of staff? This is actually from the committee. We had staff draft it and as per our instructions. So we've got a series of requests. Mr. O'Donnell, any concerns about what we're recommending?
I don't know that we provide any recommendations.
Well,
Okay.
I'm just saying, based on the written material of what we submitted. We also made it very clear in this document that if it is the wish of this commission to pursue an advisory vote, the time frame is extremely short. And that would mean extra meetings, extra work for us. I'm not going to mince words about it. It would mean additional, we'd have to put in some additional work to make that happen. And I don't mean just 1 or 2 meetings, I mean a lot of work.
I move we don't go forward,
You move, we what?
that we do not go forward on this.
Going up for an advisory vote?
In November. Or can you just be more specific?
Doug, could you be more specific?
I went off again. I'm having trouble with my connection.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any way we're going to get it onto the ballot in that time. You have the, what is it, August 3rd? Is when we get the report in, and then August 13th, we'd have to get ballot title. I don't see we have the time.
Mr. O'Donnell, I see your hand is up as well.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Neely, simply because these things work together. The second bullet point talks about development of a vision statement and a framework for decision-making pertaining to new projects. That is exactly what we're talking about in terms of putting forth something for voter input on the 21st. We don't have the vision statement. We're not putting forth a statement yet that says, here's our framework. This is how we intend to run urban renewal. Would you as a community support that? We have to construct that and put it out for the community to vote. I think we could do that rather than even a single project. Put out, here's our guidance. Here's what we have to do on an urban renewal project, and put it on the ballot and have it decided. So I'm going to have to go with Commissioner Neely and say, don't continue on at this point until we resolve some of those things.
So you're saying that it's not appropriate to go for a November advisory ballot?
I don't know if we have the time to complete the
Okay,
task.
I just want to be clear. So Mira Lyle Smith.
Thank you. So yeah, I just want to clarify, because the reason that this is coming up in our meeting was when we talked about this advisory vote, I think it generally had some support, but we never actually set a time of like, are we talking about this November? Or are we talking about a May? And then, part of our goal of coming together as an executive committee was to actually like, what does the project look like? What are all the things we need to get done? And how long is that going to take? And when by that meeting, we found out the date in which we were going to have the ballot information in, and it was by the time we found out it was mid-August. That was when I was like, oh, well, that's a revelation. That's really early. And I don't think we're going to be able to get it all done. And so this is just more of a, I was surprised. I was thinking that we could do it if it was a little bit later of a deadline. Maybe if it was early September, we could get the stuff into the county, but since it's early, I don't think we could do it. And so we just want a general consensus that we're all in agreement that we don't want to have, 8 meetings between now and the next 6 weeks to try to make that happen. That in general, we're going to take our time and do the visioning and the framework for the projects and stuff like that, and then shoot for like a May ballot measure, kind of the timeline. But
Well, I think you summarized the report aptly. Do you have any comments, Commissioner Morrow?
Yeah, thank you, Chair McGriff. I'm going to have a hard time being able to move forward with urban renewal without an advisory vote, and I really would like for that to occur. But given the circumstances, even though I've never run for an election, I do know the stresses of getting those materials in on time, as you know. And so I want us to be able to do this right. And these circumstances are not going to allow us to do this, to be able to move forward with the vision that we want to show to the community. And so if that's a special vote in May, I would be more comfortable with that.
Mr. Cross?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
I agree with that.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a consensus, and I guess just to be absolutely clear, I would like to request that we have a motion confirming the information that we have in the report, that we're going to move forward with at least the first 3 bullet points, and we're going to come back to the timing of an advisory vote. Is that correct, everybody? Is that reasonable? No, you're shaking your head. No, I'm looking at the memo right here. So we've got creation of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Oregon City and the Urban Renewal Commission, development of a vision statement framework, dealing with some deliverables to be completed by Leland Consulting by the August 3rd deadline to help us get to those things that we need to get done. And then we will see where we are on advisory vote. I know I've looked up, unfortunately, the 2022 calendar has not been published yet by our clerk's office, and I was trying to look up dates for May, so I was going by last year's and kind of moving things forward like a day. So we're talking about sometime in February is what my best guess is, towards the end of the month, if I was extrapolating, moving the day over. So that would be a time frame where we'd have to have our ducks in a row and get a proposal to the clerk's office to be on the May, the second Tuesday in May, to be on a ballot. So that is based on my very preliminary research. And again, I called the clerk's office and they don't have anything yet. Mr. Neely.
I think it's too early to talk about what date it would be.
I'm just saying general. I'm just giving you a general idea. I'm not saying that's what we do. I looked it up and it's on the top of my head.
I move to go ahead with the first three items.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Lyle Smith. So on the motion to pursue the first three bullet points in the memo dated 6/16, the Urban Renewal Commission. Jacob, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
and Chair Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So Mr. Conkle, is that enough direction to move us forward?
Yes, we'll work with Leland Consulting to put together, really trying to flush out the decision-making process, the vision statement. We'll see where we get. We probably also work with them on at least bringing enough information for that when they're done in August, we can continue that work through September, October, November to bring the plan to completion with the commission. So there may be additional information that we put together as staff that at least provides a place for the commission to begin those conversations, whether it be about projects or just preliminary numbers on financing our construction costs, so that we have something to start with. Because without additional meetings, we have 2 meetings left, roughly, with the Urban Renewal Commission of less than an hour, with an item that's been pushed over already.
Well, I guess I would like to request that if I have the approval of everyone else generally, that we start. Again, there's some draft language out there for us to look at to see where we want to go with the vision statement. And I don't think it hurts to start with something. It may not be exactly what we want. It may not be anything what we want, but at least we have some language we can look at and we can add our own spin to it. And I would like us to start with that as soon as possible. I don't want to delay. And if we have to have another meeting like an hour beforehand just to deal with that, I would be supportive of that. Maybe not have anything else on the agenda until our next regular. We've got 2 items here that we were pushing to the next urban renewal meeting, but if we had one just where we're talking about the vision, I think we could, let's just say I'm going to pray that we could get through it in an hour. If we have something in advance. Rocky's shaking his head. Well, if we commit to doing it, then we can do it in an hour. I believe we can. If we have something to review and we do our homework, we can do it. I feel very committed to doing that, and I'm committed to doing the work. So,
I mean, an alternative would be for have staff to work with the executive committee again to bring something back for the commission to
I don't
look
have a
at.
problem with that either. I'll go either way. And I will defer to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Frank O'Donnell.
I have a question on the last motion. Item 3 was deliverables to be completed by the Leland Consulting Group by the contract deadline of August 3rd. We're not talking about additional deliverables, are we?
No.
Just those that we've already contracted and paid for with no additional fees.
We've already approved it, so.
Yes, it's already been approved.
Last meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess what I'm worried about is that all the deliverables that we envisioned in the contract probably aren't going to be available, because I don't think we're going to be done with this process by August 3rd. So we're going to have to go back and work with them a little bit to get as much as we can to tee us up for conversations that are going to probably happen in August, September, October.
Which is why some of us wanted to cut the contract short and then reissue. but that was the preceding meeting. We've already decided the matter.
I'd like to amend the motion. It's a little late since we voted on it, but to amend the motion, date to be determined on the deadline.
That would have to be a new motion since that motion's already been made and approved.
Okay, I'll move for the first three items with the making the deliverers deadline to be on a date to be determined.
I can't go beyond August 3rd because of the charter limitation
Oh, okay.
on contracted indebtedness.
Yeah.
So he'll come back to us with a revised something or other, a proviso. So if we don't have any other business at the moment, we will again, I apologize to staff and our citizen who are here to testify on items 2 and 3. We're just not going to get to it tonight. And we'll have staff, Mr. Graham will get back to you about when that will be rescheduled. Mayor Lyle Smith, may I go ahead and adjourn this meeting? And when would you like to, just as an advisory, when would you like to tell us to come back for the commission meeting? Because it's almost 7:10 right now. So
we need to start at by 7:15.
15. Okay, all right. So I will adjourn the meeting of the Urban Renewal Commission, and we'll come back at 7:15 for the next meeting.